Here's Reverend Martin.
All right, thank you, Dr. Blackwell. And let me say Hotep Habaragani to my Africana Studies colleagues and friends. And let me say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night and never ever goodbye, because I've always found goodbyes traumatizing. That's just personal. I find goodbyes traumatizing. My name is Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. I am the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and the offering that you are viewing is entitled "It's Time," which is it is a social justice offering. And any good school teacher would tell you that time is too broad a subject and social justice is too broad a subject, so we try to narrow the two down and speak about social justice in the context of its impact upon our health and our environment, and speak upon social justice as it affects our economics, because sadly we are in a capitalistic society now, and that's just the way it is. We're not going to be able to change that, but let's see what the Word of God says about that. All right, Isaiah chapter 21, and picking up at verse 11, he calleth to me out of Seir, Watchman, what of the night? Watchman, what of the night? The watchman said, that morning cometh, and also the night. If ye will inquire, inquire ye, return and come. All right, watchman, what of the night? And that means the watchman is a protector, he's a guard, he's somebody supposed to be on the alert for the time that he is responsible for, and his or her duties are to sound the alarm if something adverse is occurring, an anomaly, whether it's harmless or harmful. You need to be, the purpose of the watchman is to alert and wake up the people so that they can react properly to the conditions or circumstances that may be harmful or may be benign. All right, it's like you wouldn't have a dog, a guard dog that don't bark. Of course, what I see now on the YouTube is that these folks are paying a fortune for these dogs, and the dog ain't worth a quarter. Amen. So a lot of times these days, you don't buy a guard dog for protection. You just buy a dog to have a dog that you got to pick up behind. But that's the people that like to pick up behind their dogs. For my sake, if the dog don't bark, if you don't let me know somebody's coming up in my house or breaking in my window or busting down my door, I don't need the dog. So you know what I think about dogs. But getting to the serious part, watchman, what of the night? Well, it says here that there is a California bill being sponsored by an Assemblyman, Joaquin Arambulo, and what this bill would grant, it would grant immigrants up to 20%, up to $150,000 to purchase their first home in California, and is entitled the California Dream for All program. And that means up to 20% of a home's value would be matched by the California taxpayer. Zero down, zero interest on the dime of the California taxpayer. Median price for a home in California, single family home, is now up to $904,210. But by my home being in the black community, is still downgraded. Nationally, home nationally is only $439,710. That's nationwide. But in California, if you want to buy your first time home, you're going to need this program that will grant you up to $150,000 for your down payment. This is a zero interest and a zero down that they are proposing, and it is on Governor Newsom's desk right now, and he is making up his mind whether to sign it or not. And so if you was a guard, you're going to need to say something about this here, because this here is looks like it's a slap in the face to a lot of people around this country that have struggled and labored to get their monies together to pay to get their down payment to buy that first house. And if you like me and you remember the history of this nation and how it prevented steadfastly black people from buying their first home, and when they did let you buy a home, it was a high interest rate, and then you had to put a lot of money down. Then a lot of times the house that you contracted to buy was just that, a contract house. You never owned the house. You could pay, you would pay probably 2 or 3 times what the value of the house was, but you never owned the house. You never, in other words, in those days, you never gained no equity in the house because the nation didn't want black people to own houses. But now, this is an immigrant. You don't even have to be a U.S. citizen to take advantage of this. Mr. Joaquin Arambulo says, and then to Nancy Pelosi says, she would like to move the undocumented to documented and make the American dream available to the world. And this bill is entitled AB 1840, for those of you that want to look it up. It's a California bill. And that it is designed to benefit immigrants who are first-time home buyers, because most immigrants, whatever they may own back in their country, when they come over here, they're first-timers. That's whether you're legal or illegal. Assemblyman Joaquin Arambulo, I may be pronouncing his last name wrong, but you can look it up. Assemblyman Joaquin Arambulo. And the bill is on Governor Newsom's desk for him to veto or sign. All right, California Dream for All program, where the California taxpayer will guarantee to help you with up to 20% of your down payment, and the median price of a single family home in the state of California, like I said, that's the median. Median mean in the middle. Is $904,000. You may as well say $1 million down payment. If that's the cost of the house. If the house costs $940,000, and you got to get there 20%. In my day, you didn't have to come up with but 10%, but now you got to come up with 20%. And the average price for a house, single-family house in the state of California, is $904,210. Okay, and Nancy Pelosi said she would like to move the undocumented to documented. And someone else had written a little note up here that I thought we needed to look at. A lot of black politicians are openly suggesting that immigrants are replacing blacks, and that's why this bill is being advanced in the California state legislature. You remember what is happening up in Chicago, Illinois. The mayor of Chicago was catching a lot of heat because the citizens that live there, that pay taxes there, couldn't get no help from the government for their needs. But as soon as the immigrants started coming into Chicago, the mayor found over $4 million. $4 million. If it was there for the immigrants, why wasn't it there for the citizens who pay the taxes? Woof, woof. Somebody needs to start barking. So anyway, that's what the state of the world is right now in the state of California. That's what's on the line. And remember, we have, they say 4 million housing units short in order to have a house for everybody that would like to have a house in the state of California. And right here in Los Angeles, we have so many homeless on our streets that are now being driven from pillar to post by the police and by the law enforcement. But they have some will have nowhere to go. And I just found out if you have an RV, it costs you $400 a month just to store or rent a place to store that RV. And so even if you have a place to stay and you own a motorhome, that motorhome is going to cost you until you can get it behind your house, out of sight of the street, and there you can park it, and hopefully you will get some relief. But these things are, like I say, woof woof. Somebody wake up. Now, there are 7 states: Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Missouri, North Dakota, and Ohio that are suing the federal government to block the Biden administration attempts to reduce student loan debt. These states argue that President Biden had no constitutional authority to reduce the debt, and Biden plan would take $20,000 off the average student loan. But the states that I call, they are protesting. The governors of those states are protesting, and they are suing the federal government to block that student loan reduction. And my argument is, if they're getting repaid, why should they care how it gets repaid, as long as they get repaid their money? But these Alabama and these states would rather defer, or demur rather, and they feel that if you made that debt, that you should pay that debt, even if you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who had all of her debts forgiven, mind you, but she's still holding up the bloodstained banner that anybody with a student loan should pay that student loan, and that student loan will follow you into the grave. Oh my. Yes. And so I'm sure you've heard about the high cost of these things, but and you go to school, and whether you become a doctor or a lawyer or some other field of endeavor, by the time you finish 4 or 8 years of school, God help you, still 8 years, you will amass a great deal of debt. And if you didn't have middle-class parents who would pay that debt as you went to school, when you get out of school, amen, when you get out of school, boy or girl, you're going to be behind the 8 ball financially. because you could be carrying as much as $25,000 to $100,000. Some people over $200,000 worth of debt, student loans that they'll have to pay back to the government, because the government is the guarantor of these student loans, and the person that ultimately has to repay that is you and me. And Biden, I give him credit. He sought to address it and to alleviate it. And it would have been alleviated if State Senator Joe Manchin and State Senators, what's the first name? The last name is Sinema. And the Republicans had not blocked it. The Republicans, along with these two Democrats whose names I have called, they blocked the Make America Better or Build Back Better program that the Biden-Harris administration had started and was trying to get passed through the Congress. But the Congress said no, because the Republicans outnumber the Democrats in the House of Representatives, and it wasn't going to never get to the Senate because the House of Representatives was blocking it. And so that is why the controversy over the student debt loans is still going on. Something else I meant to mention, the California reparations bill. Remember when Gavin Newsom first became governor, he set up a reparations commission. And the purpose of the California State Reparation Commission was to study how did California aid and abet not only slavery but discrimination in its early history. And what the commission found that yes, California, although it came to the Union as a free state, was a very rabid hater of black people. And I'm down here in Southern California, and Southern California wanted to go with the Confederacy. And but for the tireless orations and rhetoric of J.C. Fremont and his wife Jessie Fremont, California would have came into the Union as a slave state. But because of those two people, they prevented the California from going the way of slavery. But that didn't mean that California loved black folk, just like Oregon didn't love black folks. No. But in the state of California, they passed laws, and according to the chairman of the Reparations Commission, Camilla Moore, and the co-chairman pastors up there in Oakland, Reverend Amos Brown, and with a star-studded group of panelists on that Reparations Commission, that he called in all the right people. They called in Professor Greg Carr from Howard University, and they called in a great deal of other experts, including Dr. Darity from Texas. Well, you get the point. You get the point. Let us not belabor it. But the point is that now that the Reparations Commission have made their recommendations, I think there were 250 recommendations, and the the California Legislative Black Caucus had made up a list of 14 demands that they were going to present in the California legislature. But somehow all of that got derailed this week, and so they didn't bring the reparations bill to the floor because it couldn't get it voted out of committee. And when you look at that against the backdrop of this $150,000 for a first-time immigrant, homebuyer, immigrant or citizen, then you see things ain't going our way up there in Sacramento. As far as black people and reparations are concerned. And as California goes, so goes the rest of the nation. 2 other states were looking at California and going to act upon what California was able to put before and get passed in the California legislature. But of course nothing passed because the bill was not permitted to come to the floor. And so Governor Newsom won't have to be put on the spot to see that either he's going to veto it or he's going to pass it. And so that is where black people stand in California. Put that reparations in there because it's important. It's not just reparation for slavery, but it's also reparation for the 100 years after, where we were prevented, as we say, from buying a house. You couldn't buy a house where you wanted. If you did, that'd be hell to pay. As Ocean Sweet had to be defended by the NAACP and Clarence Darrow because he dared buy a house in a white neighborhood of Detroit way back yonder in 1924. And so, like I said, when it turned to the black man, he's always had it hard trying to find somewhere to stay. The federal government underwrote the loans and underwrote the insurance so that the suburbs were able to be built, but they gave the suburbs to the white folks, and they gave Nicholson Gardens and those places to the black people. We were always being shunted off into one corner. And that's why America looks like it looks today, because of white supremacy and because the fact that the ruling class ruled and the people who were not being in rulership position were ruled upon. And most of us black people here in California have been the victims of being the objects, or the subjects rather, of the wrath of those hired to protect and to serve. I always remind myself that William Bratton, who was the chief of police of New York, and then he came here as chief of police, and then after he got through being the chief of police, he went back and became chief of police again. Now you talk about somebody that got a good pension. William Bratton has a good pension. But that's neither here nor there, because what I was going to say was Bratton made the observation that the worst moments in black people's history would not have been made without the police. There was always a policeman with his foot on the black man's neck, a policeman patrolling the neighborhoods, sidewalks where a black man lived. And the police knew that his way up, his career path upward, was to make arrests. Lawfully or unlawfully, it did not matter, because the police administration and authorities who were in charge at that time and even now really did not care. And so your advancement was based upon how many black people did you arrest for this or for that. And guilty or no, the judge didn't care, the jury didn't care. And so DAs and prosecutors and attorney generals and judges and bail bondsmen and the like ilk, they made their fortune. They made their career. They sent their kids to school and college and universities by putting black people in the prison. So that's why you have this huge prison system all over the country, mostly filled with black people. Because who was it that they started chasing in slavery? Why, it was the slave. Who was the slave? Was a black man, black woman. And so that has always been, and until we change that model, get a new paradigm, that will continue to be. And so we have to take that into consideration. And so the reparation is not a gift, it's not welfare, it's money that is owed. It should have been paid at the time. There never should have been slavery in America. 5 minutes, y'all. Never should have been slavery in America, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, where we put grandly and proudly in our Constitution. We hold these truths in our Declarations of Independence, rather. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So how did you have slavery in the land of the free and the home of the brave? Those are contradictions. And Thurgood Marshall tells us that the entire Constitution was a compromise. And because we were hypocritical, I'm saying we, but I'm meaning the country, because we were brought here from Africa and enslaved. Well, we were free in our homeland, but when we got here, they told us that we were nothing. They took away our language, they took away our culture, took away our history, took away our ID, took away our religion, took away our names, and we became a tabula rasa for slavery, or tabula rasa for capitalism. That is what we were. And I can't get off into that now because it's time to wrap this up. Man, I said 5 minutes. All right. I was looking at James Baldwin. He wrote an essay way back in 1947. It says, An Open Letter to the Born Again. And in that letter, he talked about his first trip to Israel, which was back when Israel had first been founded. And he took a trip to Israel 13 years after it was founded. Let's see. Let me get this right now. The formal founding of Israel, of course, was in 1948. All right, but when James Baldwin went there some years later, he observed in his writings on the creation of the state of Israel that it was a very cynical act of the Western nations. James Baldwin said way back then, he was in a debate with Margaret Mead. They don't care about the Jews, you see. And then James Baldwin went on to say, how can there be this disempowerment and at the same time empowerment and this suppression by the Jews of other groups? And I think that's a good place to stop today, looking at the fact that way back there in James Baldwin's era, that he saw the cynicism with which the Western nations were pushing the Jews off into their own homeland. And when we talk about values, there were no values. Ain't no values. We need the Jews over there in Israel as a buffer. Someone said that the Western powers arrogantly talk about the Middle East. Well, there is no Middle East over there. And but the Jews are acting as a buffer. And as he said at that time, the Western nations don't care about the Jews. They just, it's a murderous act. It's a cynical act. And we see now in these latter days that it's catching up with us. All right. Well, that's enough of that. But remember, if you're working on a job and they don't want to pay you what you're worth, you know what you need to do? Don't work hard. If working hard made money, every slave coming out of slavery would have been a millionaire. If they don't want to pay you, take my advice and don't work further. All right, thank you, Doc. We're out of here.